to that part next. So a build like this is a lovely model. Again, all of the things that I have that are printed right now all come from Archvillain Games and their Patreon page. It's $15 a month. You usually get like somewhere like 50 models that you can actually print up and paint. But they have these really nice giant models that the detail is so amazing. I've been so excited to paint these. So let me go ahead and that's the other thing is like I'm practicing to get better at all this. Again, sorry for the unprofessional setup, but this is I love just you can see all of the details on her. This is a Lamia. She's a fortune teller. I'm trying to turn it around so you can see all the little details here. Like I can't put it down, but if you look at the little details on her belt, the fact that they put that in there, and the scales are all individually on there. It's a beautiful model. And the highlight, so how I painted that, how I primed it. So what you do is paint's not just going to stick to resin. I just realized that all of the ones that I have tonight are already primed. That is just a normal base coat. Most of us, when we paint, we do it with a can of spray can. So, trying to put my phone down, hang on. But what you do is you take a spray can and you just spray it black or white. And the reason you want to spray black or white is how much detail you want to pop. I wish I could have brought you some miniatures to kind of show you what I've done so far to kind of give you an idea. But what we refer to it as a Xenothal Highlight. Again, for a lot of you guys who are in the hobby, who see people do it, you don't need this explanation, and I don't mean to bore you. But for a lot of my friends and people who aren't in the hobby, who don't know, what you do is you spray the whole thing in black. And then from a top down, or wherever you feel like your light source would be, like in this case, we see where the light is naturally bouncing off. I would spray white in those specific areas. And in this case, to make it easier, I use the airbrush. And I can actually go in and focus on exactly the areas I want to go in on. So now, obviously, seeing how the light is bouncing off of her and where I chose to put the white and make a little bit of gradient, a little bit of gray in some of the areas that you can kind of see here. And yeah, you typically want to use the airbrush for larger pieces. But the reason I did it this way is because the way she stands on her base, she stands at an angle, first off, and I'll show you the top part. The top part is beautiful. I love it. But she stands at an angle, and there's a crystal ball that's between her. It goes basically right here in this area. And what I wanted to do was create a highlight so it looks like there's a glow emanating from the ball that's illuminating these areas. So that way I'll have dark areas and light areas. And I'll be using I could be using all kinds of stuff, like greens, reds, blacks. But the cool thing is when you do a Zenithal highlight, and I'll show you guys that in a minute, these areas that are white or gray will pop a little bit different. In fact, the perfect example is, and I keep bringing this guy up, the perfect example here is the gradient. Oh, now it zooms in. But you can see the greens and how they kind of go from a dark, almost forest green to a almost yellowish green on those highlighted areas. And the thing is, when you first start off, you don't necessarily think about like where the lights are going to be bouncing off. You think about getting paint on mini, because we're starting off. But that white gave that green a nice lightish color. So when I go in, I can add, say for example, if I want to go in and add, I think I touched some resin and I think it's setting my skin a little bit. But I can go ahead and add, say for example, highlights on the top, or in other cases, I can also add, shading to darken the colors in the middle. So say for example, in his case, if I really want the eyes to seem sunken and to seem dark, I'll use an ink like this. Well, this is not an ink. This is actually a wash. There's a little bit of a difference. This is an ink. They don't always come in these bottles, but this ink is very diluted. Is the best way. It's very translucent, and the reason is because you want it to cover lightly so that you can paint over it, but still see a little bit through. I'll show you another example. I did something very sloppy, but with a wash, it gets into the cracks and crevices and darkens those areas as opposed to highlighting. So it helps you highlighting by focusing on those things. And I know I'm kind of going all over the place. Do you need glasses, gloves, and masks and stuff? Technically, yes. Mostly because, again, my resin's on the same. I normally wouldn't have that here. Which I think is what's happening over here. I don't know. I got this shortly. I think it was a bug bite. But sometime after the Moderna, it just went all kinds of weird on me. Anyway. Don't worry, Wolfie. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm not dead yet. But yeah, so when you're using the airbrush, you typically want to use a mask. This is the kind of mask I've got. And especially when you're doing with the resin. Part of the reason why I haven't put the mask on is because I'm not sure if I'm going to be spraying yet. I do want to get to painting tonight, which is why I have the wet palette that you saw. I do have my airbrush. Actually, since I have it here and I have you guys, don't trust me. Come on, guys. I'm safe. I'm safe. You saw the safety gloves. I'm safe. Mostly. Actually, if you guys can do me a favor, I'm going to turn on the compressor. I'm going to turn on my airbrush. There's nothing in it, and just to prove that to you guys, I'm going to show you there's nothing in there. No paint. It's not on yet. I just want to see how loud this is going to be. And if it gets annoying, let me know. So I'm going to start that right now. Now, what you want to do is kind of keep the airflow going. So this is a dual action airbrush, meaning that in order for the air to flow, I need to press down. That allows it to spray. You may not be able to see it here, but it's spraying. And obviously, when it whirs and clicks, that means that it's got the pressure that it needs. You can adjust the pressure as you need it. Now, as you can see, I'm pulling back the lever, but nothing's happening. That's because this lever allows a little needle inside here. Again, a lot of you may be new to this, but there's a little needle inside of here that if we remove it, needs a little bit of lube. Yes, it actually does need a little bit of lubricant. But you can see there's a needle here that's a little dirty. I'm actually going to clean this up a little bit before I use it. I thought I had cleaned it well enough, but apparently I hadn't. Good thing I brought it out. Now, the reason you want to keep the needle on the airbrush clean is because, to spit on it, yeah, work the shaft. Work that shaft. The reason you want to keep it clean, though, is because if you brush with it dirty, it will clog up. And just so you guys can see, there's still a little bit of the black that I was using when I was priming. And I know I'm jumping all over the place. I'm excited. I love sharing the lore. I love sharing the knowledge that I've gotten over the years from all of these great miniature painters and everything, and just relaxing with you guys, doing something chill that you guys can have on in the background. So the idea is that this needle, if it's clogged, won't spray very well. It's going to prevent it from being able to, like, it will spider, and I'll show you examples of what that looks like. And one thing that is a little worrying is that I don't know if you can tell here, my needle has a little bit of a bend in it. So I'm going to have to try to correct that a little bit. Because again, that can also... Oh, wonderful, it started raining. So what happens when this needle bends is when it pulls back, so going back to this allows air to flow through the actual brush and spray. But when you pull this back, as you can see here, the whole needle will go back, and that allows the ink to flow from this well here down into it and be sprayed out. But with this being bent, what will happen is it will kind of spray it at an angle, which can mess with it. So you want to avoid that. So I'm just going to put that back in there. And I've gotten so used to this thing. And how you hold it too is very, very important. You want to hold it almost like a pen. And what you'll do is you'll gently you want to put the air on first, and then just gently pull back on the lever, so that when the lever is pulled, there's a little bit of air in there, there's a little bit of water still in here. You can see, because when it does that, that means it's not fully clean. It should come out just air. Could also be just with the compressor, because it's just like cold air. Now, it's important that I get whatever's in there that's wet. I need to make sure that it's completely dry, because that could actually affect how the paint flows. If it's too thin, it's going to go all over the place and it's not going to come out right. If it's too thick, it's going to clog the airbrush itself, and it's not going to let me put the paint where I want it to be. Thank you guys. That actually makes me feel a lot better. I love that I'm not the only one tangential. But the cool thing about that is, though, that you have a little bit more control of how much flow comes out. So when you pull back this much, only a little bit comes out. It's just enough. pull it all the way, it's going to spray everywhere. It is going to be a huge surface area. So for something like this, initially when you spray, right, you want it to be kind of all over the place. But you also want it thin enough that you're still going to see, and I'll show you this in a minute. But you want it thin enough when you pass, and that's the other thing, is being very careful that when you make those passes, whenever you stop, don't just stop from there. No problem, Wolfie. I'll text Moose later. You guys obviously need rest. I get that. I'm doing this in the middle of the night where no one's awake. You guys, obviously, if you guys need a rest, don't worry about it. This is probably going to be on the channel for a bit longer. Wolfie, you get some rest. You deserve it. You do a lot of hard work for us. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and keep going with my spiel. Yeah, I'm in Dallas, Texas. So right now it is 12:43. To give you guys a bit of context, I'm likely going to be up till 6 a.m. So who knows how long it will be until I actually put paint on minis. And since you're awake, Gem, Creep Heart, I'm going to go ahead. I want to try this really quick because I want to spray.